For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the managing editor of Al Ahram daily newspaper, Ashraf Abouelhoul. Thank you so much for joining us on Q News. And Mr. Ashraf, as of late, 5 journalists have been killed by Israeli forces and 3 newborns have been frozen to death. How do these events highlight the severity of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
يعني بالتأكيد قاس خمسة الصحفيين لوصف عدد الضحايا من الصحفيين منذ بدء العدوان
Ever since the start of the aggression, more than 200 journalists were killed. And this is a major crime that Israel needs to be held accountable for. This is an unprecedented incident, in fact. We have never seen this number of journalists getting killed in any of the hot zones in the world, and the murdering of infants because of the continuous bombardment of hospitals. This as well is a massacre and a major crime that the whole international community needs to hold Israel accountable for. Israel as well keeps on perpetuating its arbitrary practices represented by them blocking the access of medicinal and pharmaceutical drugs and different categories of humanitarian aid into hospitals and into the Gaza Strip at large. In fact, the Palestinian people need to have instant access to all these items.
Now, Mr. Ashraf, regarding Ben Gvir's recent raid on Al-Aqsa Mosque, in what ways does this exacerbate tensions and challenge the status quo in Jerusalem?
Practices, in fact, attest to this government being a right extremist one. The right wing, the right extremist wing, keeps on launching statements that are hawkish and that revolve around the Israeli attempt to change the status quo in not just Palestine, but the entire region. And so the international community needs to advance its efforts in order to halt the Israeli violence in Palestine. The ICC and its rulings in fact attest to Netanyahu being a war criminal, and the international community needs to advance the execution of these rulings.
Now, looking ahead, what are the long-term humanitarian implications of the ongoing crisis in Gaza, particularly for vulnerable populations?
In fact, we're talking about 45,000 martyrs right now in the Gaza Strip, and tens of thousands of injured individuals, most of which are women and children, of course. And there are other categories of the population that got negatively impacted in other ways. I'm talking about individuals suffering from starvation and shortage of access to food and basic life necessities. In fact, these catastrophic conditions are actually conditions that perpetuate the genocidal practices of the Israeli occupation forces practiced against the innocent civilians in the Gaza Strip.
Now, lastly, Mr. Ashraf, how do you interpret the continued Israeli aggression in Gaza and the West Bank at the same timing of this round of the ceasefire talks? And how is this shaping the political and security landscape in the region?
للأسف الشديد
Fortunately,
إصرار على استمرار العدوان.
the Israelis have an intention to perpetuate the aggression, which is going to exacerbate the conditions of fragmentation in the region. We have seen the assaults on bodies of worship and on human souls in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, of course, carried out by the Israeli occupation forces. In fact, all of these practices are going to give rise to other extremist groups that will try to fight back and will try to fight the Israelis in a way that is unprecedented in its violence and aggression.
From Cairo, that was the managing editor of Al Ahram daily newspaper, Ashraf Abouelhoul. Thank you so much for your insights.